All right. So I don't have time to really try to make these things pretty, make these things work. Since starting my own business, I mean, I just do not have time to sit here and do this. I got a little girl on the way. I got my own business. I've just got started up. I'm actually working on the side, labor, just to try to make some extra money to get things going. Just keep capital coming in, cash flow coming in, so that I can hopefully get this loan that I need to get this business going. So, working diligently to do all that, and while I'm doing that, this news feed or this news story just happened to come across my news feed, and I really was intrigued by it because it kind of correlated with an idea that I had several years ago. A long time ago, me and my wife were going to Tulsa, Oklahoma to see a concert. It was a fun thing to do. But on our way there, we stopped through Dallas, and we always love to go to the museums, one of our favorite pastimes. And we were at the Perot Museum in Dallas one day, and they had a NASA exhibit going on there as we were. And again, I'm a manufacturing professional. I am not a scientist. I'm not really into the spacecraft. I just I am a manufacturing specialist, and one of the great things is, I mean, it's a most probably one of the most complicated chess games that you can ever play, especially when you get into some serious manufacturing where you're using a lot of outsourced labor. You have a lot of outsourced processes that are not typical inside most shops. It can get pretty intense and extreme, and I've done some really cool big jobs that I've managed over the years, and I really enjoy what I do, and it's all about problem solving. So, anyway, my mind is constantly going through those processes. Well, anyway, while we were at the Perot Museum, the NASA exhibit there, I'm sitting there just thinking to myself, all right, so, if humans are ever going to evolve beyond our current planet, what do we need to do? What are the steps we need to take? And I know Elon Musk is big about Mars. I think Mars is a lost cause. I just don't think there's enough value there, and trying to terraform a planet that doesn't seem to be really in any way conducive to human life or carbon-based life forms in any sense that I can see or know of. But we also have a big problem with the vastness of space. I mean, so there are two extremely complicated subject matters there. I mean, we have the planet Mars, which could possibly be habitable with a lot of technology. It's going to take some serious effort to get that going on there. I think we're going to have to rob too many resources from our own planet in order to make Mars a viable resource, and so I just don't think it's worth it. Now, myself, I thought, and after watching The Martian with Matt Damon a while back, I remember seeing how they were talking about actually his ability to escape off the planet was made much easier by the lack of atmosphere, or the thin atmosphere, and the less gravity on it. And I thought, well, we'd have those same kind of advantages on our moon. So I thought that using the moon as like a harbor to build long reconnaissance, spacecraft. I think that we can actually go to and find some of these exoplanets. I was just reading on Sciworthy not that long ago. I think it was they were using a form of telescope to actually see, is it oxygen? Oxygen in the atmosphere? I can't remember. Gosh, it's been a while, and definitely a tough subject, but a really cool subject that you can actually tell the chemical makeup of the atmosphere of a planet through telescopic means. But anyway, trying to identify some of these possible inhabitable planets for us currently, as our anatomy will allow us to live, I think is going to be the best way for us to do that. Now, the problem is we have to travel through the vastness of space, and so while I was at this observing this, I just happened to see there was a young lady, or the young pregnant lady, was actually sitting at one of the exhibits doing those little interactive ones, and it was kind of like a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, well, if we could make so I know, as just a general human knowledge, that freezing eggs and sperm are what would you say that it's feasible, that we know that we're capable of freezing eggs and sperm for long durations. I think what I seem to recall a story not too long ago about an egg and sperm test tube. I think they said that the 26 years. It was. I think it was over 20 years. Excuse me. I wish I may have to look up that story if I can find it. But there was a baby that was born in which the egg and sperm were saved for several years, and the baby turned out fine. And so I thought, well, that seems like the best course of action for us to expect to, be able to travel long distances. We're going to have to freeze egg and sperm, and basically grow humans on the planet in which we want to inhabit by utilizing an artificial womb. And that's what this story is kind of about. This is the first time that a team of scientists based in Israel developed healthy mice embryos without a uterus. And so for this story to come out now, I mean, it's definitely still a long-term goal to be able to grow an entire human baby outside of uterus, especially to do full term, is just going to be incredibly difficult. And it's funny, there's a movie on Netflix that I thought was intriguing kind of about this. It's called Mother, I believe, but it's about a robot mother raising a child. And so, because, I mean, you have to use that kind of same logistical step. So you have egg and sperm, you put them into a spacecraft for a long travel time, and then when they get to the planet that we want to try to terraform, then they'll have to actually go into that planet, and you'll have to, now we have to artificially inseminate the egg and sperm there in the artificial womb, grow the baby to term. Once the baby's grown to term, then you have to care for the baby with some kind of mechanism in order to do this. Now, a big inhibitor of that, what I learned from Jordan Peterson, and when in the Romanian study back in the 70s and 80s, I believe, under communist rule there, they had rule under Nicholas, the Tsar at the time, or whatever his dictation, whatever it is, dictator, whatever his title was, leadership of Romania, in which he forced his populace to not use any type of birth control, and so the population boomed exponentially. But the problem is that these people didn't want to care for them. They depended on the state to care for them, and so they would hand the babies over to orphanages and all these nurseries, and they didn't have enough nurses to care for the amount of babies that they had. And what was observed in all this is that feeding the babies wasn't enough. That actually babies that were not given physical contact would actually they would die. And what I found out in some research in doing that is that one of the biological mechanisms in which humans have evolved to do is that young babies, when they're not touched by their mother, it actually slows down their metabolism. And so apparently, again, I'm Joe Biden's words. I'm Neanderthal thinking, I'm sure, but with the metabolism slowed down, the babies wouldn't gain weight. It's something to try to protect them over the long term of not having any substance coming to them. So you wouldn't think, if there's no physical contact, especially prior to the real industrial age and what we've been able to do to, as far as formulas for babies to survive on and grow on and ingest, rather than the necessity to breastfeed children, that evolutionarily we are still geared towards that physical contact with the baby to go, hey, all right, I have physical contact, so I can nourish myself through this, and their metabolism would speed up and they would put on weight. And a baby that was given food but no physical contact, their metabolism would stay slow, and they would still not gain weight, and they would eventually die from this. And so that and that's just the steamrolling problem of the logistics of this endeavor that I'm trying to tackle. And I mean, I'm doing it solely by myself, and it's probably not worth my time, but I just can't stop my brain from thinking about these things. So. Uh, and another thing, I was actually reading a Sideworthy article just a few minutes ago about how the human body does, and this really interesting study that NASA did with these two identical twins, one stationed on the ISS for over 90 days and then one on Earth, and how they measured everything. And of course, which I'm not sure how relevant this study is to the idea of actually sending sperm and egg separated and frozen in a cryogenic state, basically for long-term travel through space. How that's going to be affected by radiation, I don't know. And that's something I don't know if that's in the works. Probably so. I mean, I'm probably 10, 15 years behind the technology because I'm not in the know with these things. But I find the questions intriguing at minimum, and so. But of course, one of the things that they do talk about in here that I do think is going to be relevant is radiation, and that was pointed out actually by my uncle. I talked to him. He was a NASA engineer for Lockheed Martin engineer, and helped work with NASA to develop the space shuttle a long time. Very smart guy. Really, one of my big influences growing up, and one of the reasons I wear this Texas A&M hat, even though I never went to Texas A&M. Love to have gone, but college was just never my calling. I don't know. I was ready to get out and do something, and I don't know. At the time, just especially being young, I didn't have really any goals other than being in the military. I wanted to be in the military. That was something that was kind of ingrained in me long before I got into high school, and so I thought, man, being a warrior, that was going to be the best thing that I could do, and so that's what I ended up doing. I spent 5 years in there, and I went to college while I was in the military. I didn't graduate. I got an associate's doing electronics, and once I got out of the military, I went straight into the labor force, and I've enjoyed it. I think I made a good decision, and honestly, man, tell you what, YouTube, best investment I could have ever made. I listened to the highest level of college intellectual lecturers that I can possibly think to over the course of the last 5 years that I'm sure is just grown my knowledge exponentially. Not my intellect. I'm still, I don't think I'll ever be smarter than what I am, but the ability to consume quality information through YouTube is just, the source of that is just undeniable. And so I'm thankful for it. I typically wear open-eared bone conduction headphones. I've gone through 4 sets of these things in the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm probably consuming 16 to 17 hours worth of current events, context, political context, social, college level philosophical discussions. So it's incredible, and a lot cheaper than paying to go to college, unfortunately. I mean, I know college, there is utility there in college, but I think, good Lord, I think the college student loan system is screwing people over hand over fist. I have no doubt about that, but I'm a conservative, so I don't think you get free college is going to help anything. Sorry. Off on a tangent there. But anyway, so I really like the idea. I wish we'd explore this more, and of course, I know over the courses of medical advancements, we've gotten better at actually having children out of the womb much earlier stages and nursing them to survival. So, I mean, if we could see these two kind of congregate and come together at some point in which the bringing them to the, what did they say? This is embryo? Is that a fetus? So they bring it all the way to fetal stage. And the medical science of actually helping premature babies actually make it to self-sustaining situation in which they could live outside of the uterus. So, if we bring those two technologies together, then we possibly could get to a point in which babies can be born outside of utero, which would just be amazingly freeing. Another step of freedom for females. But then again, you don't get to experience. I don't know. That's not a question I guess I could really answer. I know my wife, she struggles with it day right now. She's at 8 months, so it's tough on her, especially a third one. So so thankful and so wonderful that she does what she does, and I can't wait for our beautiful girl to get here. I hope she's just amazing. So, but anyway, so I just kind of want to put myself out there on some of the science that I find intriguing. And what it could mean long term for human expansion over to, further than our own planet. I think these little bitty pieces of the puzzle to the overall science that can get us to being more of a species that can be multi-planet. But again, as another logistical hurdle that I realized while I was actually going through this and thinking about it is that it kind of actually brought me back around to the biblical text as well. And so that's things just lend themselves to more and more complication when you start to think about it. I don't know. I just see so many correlations. But anyway, and what that logistical hurdle was is the fact that I could sit there and think, okay, put a human being on a desolate planet, and what's going to happen? Well, it's going to die. That a human being, we're dependent. We're constantly dependent on so many things. We're dependent on our relationship with oxygen, with the molecule of oxygen, right? We're with water. We're dependent on other species in order to survive. So we can't think of ourselves as a single species when we talk about actually escaping the confines of our own planet. We have to think more carbon-based life form rather than solely our own specific species. So that was another hurdle that I had to get through. And not just that, but like I said, you have to think about the molecules that are a necessity for our body to survive. So there's so many of these complex things, and that's why, and I hate to reference. Well, no, I don't necessarily hate to reference, but it was one of the things that made me kind of circle back to reading and understanding the Bible. There's a lot of wisdom still there. Especially if you do believe in evolution, you believe that the human species has been around for the hundreds of thousands of years that it's been in its current state. If you believe the evolutionary science of hominins coming through into the development of the actual human species as we know it, that human intellect has been at the level it has been for quite some time. Now, the exponential growth of our species, and as far as number, is leading to a Pareto distribution of intelligence that I'm sure is probably going to outweigh what has been done in the past. But there's still, you're contending with hundreds of thousands of years of intellect, of word-to-word pass down of information. Not done at the scale that we do now with the written language, with data consumption, as we do with the internet now. So, but the story of Noah and the ark, right? Story of Noah and the ark, where he didn't just save himself; he had to save all the other species. And honestly, if you take that as a metaphorical idea of how we need to, push ourselves past our own planet. That's really what you have to think. You have to think, okay, well, we get there, we might need to bring a chicken. It's, somebody might want chicken nuggets. But same thing with everything else. We need to repopulate seeds, and that was really fascinating. Talking to a friend of mine who she knows, I'm sure, a lot more about this kind of stuff than I do. But I think Elon Musk, I was listening up on some of his stuff, that it was SpaceX that was actually looking at sending seed pods to Mars to see if any of them would germinate on the planet. And so that's an interesting idea. I think certainly that's a good start. It may not be a waste of time with Mars, for sure. See if you can't find something hardy enough to actually grow on a planet that's as little inhabitants as that can possibly do. If you can get plants to grow like that where you can have a sustainable food source, that's a big step, big logistical step to get over. So, but anyway, but the idea, like I said, I don't know. Sperm and egg traveling through space, having to contend with the radiation in space. Now that's probably that. From what I understand, that is the biggest hurdle, and that's what I was reading about in this side where the article, and they were talking about how the radiation. How I'm trying to get back there. I don't remember. What specifically they said that the radiation. Now we had some issue. I know the telomere issues, which I thought that was really interesting. I like Ronna Patrick. She's been one of my favorite influencers, I guess, that I've listened to over the years, and learning about the idea of the telomeres, which Brett Weinstein talks about that as well, with his research in mice, and that his podcast, Brett Weinstein and Eric Weinstein, talking about what happened in science and using mice and the telomere research that we had, and the idea of cancer being the reason. If you get elongated telomeres, the correlation with cancer. I mean, that's kind of what cancer is. It's the constant division of the cell. So, from what I understood of it, but the idea telomeres. I would imagine that a body in space in zero gravity would actually wouldn't consume nearly as many calories. So you work a calorie restrictive diet in the ISS, and then also you've got a body that's not expelling or surely not needing as many calories in order to function in space because you're not carrying your own weight. I mean, that's got to be a huge suppression of the need for calories in space, I would think. But, I mean, no general experience there. I'm just making an assumption. And probably just doing what the traditional idea of what making an assumption is that makes an ass out of me and makes an ass out of you. Yeah, if I make an assumption. That's what I learned in the military. Anyway, there's a lot there. A lot of questions. A lot of... But so in all of that, that's what kind of led me to my relationship hypothesis, and that that's part of it. It's part of it. That so many things are a necessity to relationship. Now there's a lot more philosophical stuff in that, but that was part of one of the things in which I realized in which. We can't think of ourselves as our single species. We have to think of ourselves entwined in these relationships with other species, with other elements, we have a relationship with the physics of the world. I mean, gravity being one of them. And so it leads to this idea of infinite complexity that I just have no idea how to tackle. But it's fun. It keeps my mind just churning and sometimes keeping me up at night. Hard to get sleep sometimes with everything that I'm thinking about. I don't know if that's a good thing or if I'm just going crazy and I'm nutso talking into a microphone right now, and that's probably about what it is. But well, there it is. I don't know what else to say. It's so weird talking to a microphone, but I got to get my thoughts out there. It's a good opportunity for me to, if I don't survive much longer, at least my kids, whenever they grow up, at least my daughter will know a little bit about her dad, whether or not I'm here or not. She'll have this. So, worth putting myself out there for that. Absolutely. All right. If you guys have any thoughts, I mean, I really love Cyweather. You guys really intriguing. A lot of the stuff. I'm so glad to have make the opportunity to get to know you guys, your website, your articles. Really enjoying them so far. Hope to keep up the good work. And appreciate any feedback you can give me. It's lonely, just lowly. Not lonely. I'm not lonely. I got plenty. Lowly. uh, uh, what is it? Just for average human. Just trying to make an understanding of his world as best he can. I appreciate any information you guys can give. I'm out. That's it. I got it. I'm done.